Hi, everybody. Welcome if you're just joining. We'll give everybody a few more minutes. We've still got a lot of people signing on. Okay, looks like it's slowing down. I'll just give it a few more seconds. Okay, it's slowing down a little bit. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I'm going to take everybody through a presentation that should last maybe 20 to 30 minutes, covering everything that will be involved in our reopening for 21-22. Anything that we don't cover, feel free to put some questions in chat, or you can use the Q&A feature, but I'm going to roll through the presentation and then we'll take questions at the end. This is going to be recorded and we'll put it on the website as soon as we get it downloaded after tonight. So if you have know of other friends or families who can't make it tonight, please make sure that they know that they can still go through the whole presentation at a time that's better for them. So I'm going to start to, let's see, share. Okay, and we'll go through presentation. All right. So welcome to 21-22 school year SRS planning. We talked a lot last year about our safe return to school, which was our SRS acronym. This year we decided to change that because we are in a little bit of a different position where we know we're returning to school, but we'll call this year's SRS team our strategic recovery for school. So this will be looking at what our next steps are for the Grantham School District. And as with everything, out there starts here, our Grantham GVS motto, school district motto. And never, I think, has that been more apparent than during COVID, where we're looking at where GVS is, where Grantham is, our county, our state, and the nation and the world. So we are really looking at everything in terms of out there starts here and focusing on really what's going to be best for the Grantham School District. Our goals are the same goals basically that we had last year. We want to have a smooth transition into 21-22, into opening up for the school year. As we did with last year, our goal is to keep school open consistently and safely. And we always want to provide the best education we can in current and changing circumstances. So we'll be talking a little bit about some of the potential changing circumstances that may come up this year as we go through what we've looked at in our plans to open. So we're in a position of really balancing recovery planning from last year with a continued need to look at the health and safety measures, because I'm sure, as we've all heard in the news, COVID isn't gone. And we're looking at things that are happening with the Delta variant and how we can move forward through this year with what we know. And we do know a lot more than we did a year ago, while keeping everybody healthy and safe, no matter what comes our way. So just so you know what went into this planning process, what I'm going to be talking about tonight, is we have had quite a few meetings and information gathering over the spring and summer by looking at our parent guardian surveys. We've been looking at the staff surveys from last spring. Our progress monitoring committee has met. Our SRS Strategic Recovery for School team meetings. We've had 3 meetings so far over the summer. We've looked at the new CDC guidance, which was originally updated July 9th. And then, as I'm sure you've already heard, it was updated again yesterday. The New Hampshire DHHS update, which just took place last Wednesday on the 21st. Right around that same time, the American Academy of Pediatrics put out their recommendations. And daily, we're getting new updated information about the Delta variant and what the Delta variant and COVID, what the landscape is for children specifically, especially since we're looking at GVS being pre-K through 6. There will probably only be a handful of our students who can be vaccinated this year, who are 12, until that next wave of vaccinations is approved. And New Hampshire has currently stated that they will not be issuing any mandatory guidance. That was the message that we got last week on the 21st. So our job is to really look at the CDC guidance, the school toolkit for New Hampshire schools that DHHS put out, plus their updates, and to take all that information and do what we feel is going to be best for our GVS and Grantham community. Some of the big picture considerations, and the biggest one that we've been dealing with, is that our population of GVS is currently at 285. So we're at a record high right now. I know that we were wondering if a lot of people who moved to the area during COVID, if they would be moving back. We haven't seen that trend. We've seen that people really love GVS and they love Grantham, and the majority of people that we know moved in are staying. And so our operational design gets increasingly more difficult since everything goes on class size and our available space and staff for supervision. And we have 2 particular grade levels that are large. So Mrs. Reed let me know earlier this week that we will be welcoming 20 preschool students. We have 43 incoming kinders this year. And just since school let out, we've had 18 newly enrolled students in grades 1 through 6. So we definitely have a bit of a population boom at GVS right now. Other big picture considerations are the transmission in Sullivan County is still moderate. We're at the yellow stage, so we're considered of still the 2 that are not as increased risk, as opposed to if we at any point move to substantial or high transmission. And GVS, in terms of staff, and Grantham together have a really good vaccination status in terms of data for people who are being vaccinated, which really does help keep everybody safer. Sullivan County is a little bit, I think the last I looked, Sullivan County was around 58%. And then New Hampshire, looking at that, I think is closer to 50. But when we're looking at GVS and Grantham in particular, I really want to say thank you to our community, because in terms of community effort, there's been a lot to keep us safe. And I really want to say, before I go on, thank you so much to all the people who have participated on all those committees that I just mentioned, because over the last month or 2, people have really put in a lot of extra time thinking about what next year is going to look like and how we can make it a great year for kids. So our operational information, looking from the general perspective, is our school operating hours will be 8:30 to 3:15. So if you're looking at sort of the drop off or pickup, or if you're looking at the time the kids are coming in and out of the building, those are the times that you want to keep in mind. It will be 5 days a week, and we will be following the already approved 21-22 calendar that was approved in the spring. The first day of school for staff is August 27th. New staff will come in a day before on the 26th, and students will start September 1st. And we're already excited to see everybody. Last year at this time, we were talking about remote options that were available to parents and families if they didn't feel ready to send their students back to school. We will not be offering the GVS Academy that a remote option this year, because the expectation now for all K through 12 public schools is that all students are expected to return to school in person. That being said, families always have the option to look at VLAX, the online charter school, part or full-time for their children. And homeschooling is also always an option. And if you need any information about that, you can just get in touch with the SAU and we can help you look at all of the options so you can choose what's best for you. We're going to continue our strong focus on social emotional learning. We'll be piloting a program called the Paths program in several grade levels where the social emotional learning curriculum will be out to kids and our teachers will be trained on it. And those who aren't piloting will be continuing the Choose Love and Courage to Care programs as they did elsewhere and in previous years. You should be expecting to hear from your child's classroom teacher for welcome back conferences focused on everybody's social emotional health during our opening days, the same way we did last year. Although you might be able to actually meet outside with your child's classroom teacher if you prefer that to Zoom and we have good weather and good spacing. But we really liked that practice last year of those initial conferences and really finding out a little bit more about how kids are doing and how families are doing before they walk into school on that first day. So we're excited to keep that as one of our regular practices for now and in the future. I'm also excited that the board has approved a new social worker who's going to be integral to helping students and families through the recovery portion and whatever continued COVID needs come up throughout this year. This social worker is a half-time position and will be what I'm proposing to the board on Tuesday. This person will be part-time with all students and families. Plus, we would like this person to have oversight of after-school programming, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But it's a really great way to use that social work focus for after-school programming in order to target the students and families who have the most need right now. And I'll get into some more details towards the end of this presentation about what that's going to look like. So a lot of the discussion that we've heard in the community and probably everywhere is masking. And there were some new guidelines that came out from the CDC yesterday, but where we are with our transmission in Sullivan County, we don't need to right now make any changes with what we're proposing for masking. So at GVS, everyone will wear masks indoors when interacting with anyone else 3 feet or closer. And there will be no outdoor masking. This includes all staff and students independent of any vaccination status. So we're trying to keep this very safe, but also trying to keep it a very simple guideline. What the teachers are planning on saying to students is you mask to move. So if you're inside and you're in your class and you're working at your desk, you probably don't need to have a mask on right then and there. If you need to move for any reason, if you're going to the bathroom, if you're working in a small group, if you're working with a partner, then yes, you're going to put your mask on because you're not keeping that social distance. So mask to move is something that you're going to be hearing a lot about. Now we can keep this guideline for now as long as our status with transmission stays at the moderate or low level. And we all need to recognize that this could potentially change if our transmission rates start to increase over the fall or winter. If we get to substantial or even high transmission, we may need to revisit indoor masking and have it be more prevalent. But right now, where we stand, we feel that this is the guideline that everybody is comfortable with and that still falls within the CDC guidelines, what's recommended. I also want to say that we know and fully recognize that there are going to be kids and staff who want to choose to wear a mask more often. And that's absolutely fine. There will be no question that if anybody wants to wear a mask more than this, that's completely acceptable. In terms of screening, we will not be doing temperature checks at drop off. We looked at the data that we got from temperature checks last year, and we didn't feel that the data was worth going into that whole routine again next year. But we do need to have a continued expectation of parent screening at home. We won't be using the app, but we're going to be looking at having you have some specific guidelines that are a little bit different than last year in terms of doing your own screening of your children before you send them to school. We're also, I think it actually might already be up there, we're putting a self-checker, like it's a widget built into the main page of our website, and it's put out by the CDC, and it gives more specific information about whether you might want to be tested or not, or whether you should stay home from work or school, those kind of questions. And it's kind of a neat widget because it includes information based on your demographics and your specific community county transmission. So it's a very up-to-date way to check to see what the likelihood is of you needing to go get tested if you're having any kind of symptoms. In a screening, some more information about screening. The key changes is that our SRS team and the Progress Monitoring Committee is going to change keeping kids home from school to having 2 symptoms. And it gets more specific in terms of what symptoms you're looking for. But just for the purpose of this meeting, instead of 1 symptom, keeping your child home, there's going to be a combination of symptoms. So if you have 2 or more symptoms, then students will need to get home, and then you'll be working with the rest of the information to see if you need to get tested or all of those other kind of things. And this is modeled after the Vermont algorithm that people like the Progress Monitoring Committee has been looking at for a while. Vermont has had great success with it. So we feel that it is more realistic in terms of childhood illness and what we need to do in schools. We can do this and change to 2 symptoms right now because the DHHS guidelines are saying basically do what's right for your community. So with that, this is what we're going to be proposing to the board on Tuesday. Right now, one of the biggest changes is that New Hampshire is not recommending quarantine for close contacts within schools. However, any household close contacts, students will still need to quarantine and stay home. And we have a new flow chart for everybody that we can go through, and that will get to everybody with all of our back to school documents. But we do believe as a whole that this is going to be a more realistic way to talk about who is coming to school and who still really does need to quarantine or isolate. In continued information about screening, we are going to be implementing surveillance testing at GVS this year. So we will be regularly screening the entire school population at GVS. And this is, more of a proactive approach. So what we're going to be doing is once a month, we're going to be screening the entire school population. I want to make sure everybody knows this is something that you would opt into. You opt your child in. It's not required in any way. But staff and students, anybody who'd like to be part of this surveillance testing is welcome to participate. And individuals are just basically going to complete their own nose swab, and it'll be pooled testing by classroom plus 1 staff pool. So if you kind of want to imagine what this is going to look like, for example, we're going to go into like a grade 1 classroom. Any kids who opt into that are going to do the nose swab, and all of those swabs go into 1 vial because it's pooled testing. If they get any kind of a positive COVID from that 1 vial, then we're going to follow up with more individual testing after that. But this will give us a really nice baseline and periodic tracking of COVID in the GVS community. There is no cost to the school from this. This is going to be paid for by the state. And we're going to be working with a lab who actually sends staff to the school. So it's actually not going to overtask our already busy staff. So we're excited to bring that piece of the puzzle in this year. Instead of a closed campus, we've decided that being a limited campus is where we want to go this year. So not a completely open campus like GVS has had in the past. We're going to be recommending that we allow visitors and volunteers with a proof of vaccination and a scheduled appointment. So if you would like to volunteer in the school, if you, want to volunteer in the library, if you're, working with something in the classroom, that's going to be fine as long as we have your vaccination record on file and we know exactly when you're coming in. So we still can't do any kind of drop in or anything like that. Once any visitors or volunteers are on campus, they're expected to follow all other procedures that everybody at GVS would follow. In terms of field trips, we want to approve these based on current transmission status and the destination. So you see my lovely picture of the ocean here. It might be perfectly acceptable at times to do a field trip to the ocean. It could be very safe and a great activity for the kids. It might not be a great idea to send kids to Boston for another field trip. So we're not saying absolutely 0 field trips. We want to look at these based on current transmission status and what the destination of the field trip is as well. Unfortunately, given the CDC guidance, one thing that we can't do is we are still not allowing any large gatherings. We're going to try and do things that what we can do outdoors or possibly inside, scheduled with limited capacity, as long as we feel it's falling within the recommended guidelines and as long as we're staying at that low transmission rate in the community. Snack and lunch, eating is still recommended to be 6 foot distance when we can do it. Snack is going to be in the classrooms, and we cannot do 6 foot distancing for snack in classrooms. And we can't do snack in the cafeteria because the cafeteria we will use the cafeteria, but to keep kids at 6 foot distancing, we have to have so many lunches that we can't have kids have snack in the cafeteria as well. It just doesn't work out. So we will keep kids as distant as possible in the classroom, but we will not be able to reach 6 feet there. This still does fall within the guidelines. The recommendation is 6 feet, but they're also saying that it's when you can do it. This is the one case for snack that we can't do it at GVS. Whenever possible, classes will be encouraged to eat outside. We'll still have the tents and the tables in the fall and the spring as long as we possibly can. We've gotten into some, great habits of eating outside, and I hope that that continues. I'm sure it will because I know our teachers and kids both love it. In terms of cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, we're going to continue the practice of our routine high-touch surface cleaning and disinfecting throughout the day. So we changed our custodial schedule last year to make sure that we have a really specific rotation of all the bathrooms, all the doorknobs, all the high-touch surfaces throughout the day. This is something that we're absolutely keeping. We don't want to get rid of this, and we really truly believe this has helped keep us safer throughout the year. We still will do deep cleaning when we have a positive case because that is still recommended by both New Hampshire DHHS and CDC, is that we will need to do a deeper cleaning of a classroom and do more, cleaning, disinfecting, and sanitizing in there. In terms of books and supplies, we're going to continue with the book exchange as last year. We'll be using still physical and ebooks, and we're excited to see what Mr. Pollard is going to do. We're going to be using shared supplies and equipment throughout the day. However, we're emphasizing to all the classroom teachers that this is going to be okay as long as it's hand hygiene before and after any shared use, playground equipment, science experiments, little labs, colored pencils, anything like that. There's going to be shared supplies. There's going to be hand hygiene before and after this use. And then I've had quite a few questions about whether or not we're going back to using cubbies or if this kids will still be using their laundry baskets. We've decided that we're going to leave this to the discretion of the classroom teacher. Some teachers absolutely loved switching to the laundry baskets, and that's a practice that they don't want to get rid of. It was easier management with getting in school and getting settled and then packing up at the end of the day. So you'll hear directly from your classroom teacher about what's going to happen with all the stuff that they bring in and out of school every day. In terms of transportation, we're going to bring buses back to their usual capacity. And this is one of the only really must-dos that we have heard of from the CDC and from Dr. Chan from the state, is that the CDC has classified K through 12 school buses as public transportation. So anybody riding a bus will be required to wear a mask at all times. In addition, we're going to keep our assigned seats. So it doesn't mean we're going to exclude anybody from the bus. It just means we're going to be sending out a transportation form, and all of the drivers will be giving students an assigned seat. And for some of our students who switch at exit 14 coming back from Leb, they'll have an assigned seat on each bus. We really want to encourage everybody to fill this form out, even if you might only need transportation between sports seasons, because especially at our middle school buses, those 2 to 3 weeks, like between fall and winter and then winter and spring sports, our buses are packed. So even if you only think you're going to need it at that time, it's going to be a great help to us if you can fill out that form so we can make sure that our drivers know who's getting on the bus and where they're going to sit. In other terms for transportation, in terms of drop off and pickup, please remain in your cars. It helps us run the car line smoothly, and we still can't have parents gathering at GVS, not yet. And also the car line will go faster and better this year, mostly because of what I'm going to talk about soon with before and after school program. But we still can't have parents parking and getting out and waiting for kids. So our drop off and dismissal procedures are going to be very similar to what they were last year. I do want to emphasize to let your child out only in the designated drop-off area. We still have a lot of staff who are nervous, especially with snowbanks and in the winter of visibility of little kids. So, please make sure that you're not letting your child off until you get that signal from the person on car line duty. So we've had a lot of questions about before and after school program, and we do believe we're planning on proposing to the board that we bring these back. The, the issue is that we need to do these at limited capacity. So I'm going to talk first about before school program. So we believe our capacity that we can maximize is 30 students in the morning. All students are going to need to sign up in advance through GVS, so we'll have forms going out for you for that. And in terms of admission, who these 30 spots go to, priority is going to be given to students receiving free and reduced lunch, and all others are going to be admitted through lottery after completing a program application. It will be offered Monday through Friday on GVS school days, and the drop-off time for before school program is going to be 7:30. The cost for the program will be $3 a day per student per day. If they're not in the free and reduced lunch category, in that case, it's going to be free for those students. We still do not have the capacity to bring back the morning recess program, which is the early drop-off. We don't have the staff for the supervision of that, just based on everything else that we need to do to open school. After school program, we can have a capacity of 50 students. Each family is going to complete an application if they want their children in the after school program. And the focus of before and after school program, but primarily after school program, especially with the social worker having oversight of that program, is we really want to target the students and families who need the most help in terms of COVID recovery of anything that happened this past year, or anything that starts to happen during this next year. So priority is going to be given to students who are on IEPs, 504s, free and reduced lunch, and or recommended due to social emotional needs. There's going to be questions going out on that application for you, so you can tell us things that are going on that we might need to know about, where we can provide some after school assistance for those students. I want to be clear a little bit that it's not just if your student is on a 504. We have some students who are on 504s because they have a peanut allergy. That doesn't necessarily mean they get a priority spot in after school programming. But for some of our students who are on 504s and they could use those extra services to recover from over this last year, then the priority is going to be given there. So siblings of any prioritized students, once a prioritized student is admitted, siblings are also admitted to the program. So we certainly know that we can't say that, we're going to take one of your 3 children. So once a sibling is considered a priority spot in that program, those siblings are going to be admitted. Any other spaces that are available, much like the before school program, are going to be granted by lottery. This is going to be Monday through Thursday, as it's been for the last 3 years on GVS school days. We're going to provide snack and milk for this program. And I'm really proud of this next part because we have surplus funds from our after school program that have been in that account, not from individual parents, but just from, money that was actually made by that program. And then we're also leveraging some of our ESSER grants. And for anybody who is that prioritized eligible student, there will be absolutely no cost for the after school program for all of 21-22. So we're really proud to say that this is really a nice way that we feel we can target this program and really help our kids and families who need it the most. If, for example, you have one student admitted and the other 2 will be coming anyway, those students will still have a fee. But for the students who are, given that priority spot, there will be no cost. And for some families, all children will meet that. So there will be some families who have some nice after school programming with access to the social worker and other community resources throughout 21-22. And I think that's something that GVS is going to be really proud of this year. In terms of the fees, it's the same as it was 2 years ago, so we didn't increase those at all. So if there's a pickup by 4, it's $10 a day, and if it's a pickup by 6, it's $15 a day. So that's what it had been in the past. Another thing we talked long and hard about was snow days, and I know that snow days have been controversial with the onset of remote instruction. We're trying to strike a balance between still having snow days, but also really leveraging remote instruction. We're very good at it. We're very capable of it. And we also don't want to get to May and June and talking about how much we're going to extend into the summer as we do every year. So we will be proposing to the board on Tuesday that the first 3 snow days are just snow days, as we used to have snow days, no school, no remote instruction. From the 4th snow day forward, we're going to make the call for a snow day or a remote instruction day by 1 p.m. the day before, as we did last year. This gives all of you the chance to arrange where your kids are going to be. It gives us the chance to send technology home and work home and be ready for it. So we hope that those 3 days that are snow days will do a couple of things that'll get everybody knowing that their snow blowers are working, because we had that big storm as our first storm last year, and we had a lot of people who had some mechanical difficulties and getting shoveling out. It'll give the kids some days to just have some fun snow days. And then we will move forward after that with the 4th on, knowing that we can provide some good remote instruction, which will help us, at the tail end of the year. While I have everybody's attention, we do still have some open positions. So this is going to be on the website, and you can go on our website for applications, but we're always looking for substitutes. As always, we do have a few substitutes who have chosen to come back this year, now that now that the vaccination is out there. But we know that the more substitutes we have, the better off we're going to be in keeping things stable. We are still looking for a food service staff position for, it's 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And we will be hiring after school program staff, since that program will be coming back. And we're actually hoping that some high schoolers might be interested in doing some of our after school programming, because they can actually take the bus from lab right to GVS and be right there to work with after school program. So it could be a really nice fit for somebody looking for an after school job for a while at their old school. And we are still advertising for a Title I math paraprofessional, focusing on math only, for 18 to 20 hours a week during the school day. So just, I wanted to put those out there, because we're hoping to have those filled obviously within the next month. And all of this will be proposed to the board on August 3rd. The board's going to meet in person and in the GVS gym at 6:30. But, one thing that we all learned from COVID that everybody appreciated was the ability to not have to get a babysitter to go to the board meeting. So all meetings will still be available via Zoom. So there'll be hybrid board meetings. Basically, they'll be in the gym, and they will also be held on Zoom as usual. And then the one after that, when we just get going into the GVS school year, is September 7th, and the same thing. It'll be 6:30 in the GVS gym, and also available on Zoom. So again, thank you for your patience for letting me run through all of those things. I'm going to stop sharing, and from this point on, we can go into answering some Q&A and some questions that will probably show up in chat. Somebody said, hi, August 3rd is a Music in the Meadow night. I'm sorry about that conflict. We always schedule the board meeting first Tuesday of every month, and this is definitely a board meeting that I don't think anybody's going to want to reschedule. We need to have everything in place for starting school. Okay, with the 2-symptom rule, does that mean children with a fever are allowed to attend? No, no one is ever supposed to attend with a fever. So COVID, non-COVID, and that'll be on the whole sheet that you get, is that students should never be coming to school with a fever of over 100.4. When we talk about 2 symptoms, we're talking specifically about the COVID 2 symptoms when we're looking at it that way. I'm going to read these out because I don't know if everybody can see them. Thanks for all the work. When will families know if kids will be in ASP, as many parents will need to figure out some type of after school care? So all of this is going to the board on Tuesday night. As soon, like, we have everything ready. We have the, the applications, the Google Forms ready to go. So as soon as the board does the approval, we'll make those live first thing Wednesday morning. And as soon as we start getting the applications in, we'll have a deadline. I'm not sure what we said of the deadline, but it'll be on the forms, and we will be able to let you know as soon as possible if you have a spot. We certainly understand that parents are going to want to know soon. Somebody's asking, why is after school program operating at limited capacity? Is it staffing? Is it COVID? It's actually both. So we are looking at the space we have and the staff that we know we can make available. So with both, we believe that to run a sustainable program, that this is the number that we can, this is the maximum number that we can have at school to be able to keep this going and to keep school running the way that it needs to be running. How many children have been enrolled in the after-school program on average over the past 3 years it was run? So in after-school program, it was usually about 70 to 75. So we're looking at about 20 to 25 students fewer in this program. So it is a limited capacity. Thank you for this common sense, science-based approach to this school year. Much appreciated. Thanks. It is nice that we can go into the school year with more knowledge about what we need to do. So even when we hear things about the Delta variant and about rising cases, we still have the knowledge of what we need to do and how to do it. As I met with the staff earlier today, it's not our first rodeo. We do have the majority of tools and know-how to make it a good, smooth school year. If a child has a 504 for something like a peanut allergy, is that a reason to be automatically allowed to participate in the before and after school programs? No, that was sort of the example that I was giving earlier, is that we will be specifically looking at, prioritizing those students who are going to benefit from additional time. So it won't be specifically something like a peanut allergy. That student might be admitted for another reason, but it wouldn't be specifically because of that. In the past, my kids were in ASP some days, but not all. Will that still be an option? We're going to have to prioritize people who need all 4 days. And after that, as space allows, we will allow people to do partial days. But right now, in order to look at this capacity, we're going to be looking at first admitting people who really truly need those all 4 days. What measures will you use to reconsider masking policies in the school, and how will that be communicated? Well, right now, what the CDC came out with just yesterday is that they're recommending masking in schools for any district that is considered substantial or high transmission, any county that is at that place, and we're not there yet. We would have to see if our cases are rising, if at that point, if guidance is coming out that our 3 feet masking is still acceptable, or if we need to maybe go back to a little bit more of what we did last year where we are masked whenever we are inside. I haven't heard any change in the guidance yet in terms of schools for outdoor masking, so I think we're good with that. But we're just going to keep an eye on as schools open and if there are new recommendations. I feel confident that this is a good place for us to be right now, but again, we all know that we need to be flexible and things may change. 20 to 25 students fewer, not accounting for the growth in the GVS student population. It is incredibly disappointing to hear of the limited after-school program. Um, I'm sorry that you're disappointed. I can tell you that we really focused hard on making after-school program something that we can really do to help the kids and families who need it. We have we've really truly maximized what the GVS infrastructure can handle this year, while keeping our priority on GVS. And I do know that childcare is an issue. I've been reading all of the articles in the paper about childcare in the Upper Valley area. I can tell you that GVS has maximized what we can do in terms of not putting our own school infrastructure in jeopardy. I'm hopeful that the Grantham community will look at other options for childcare after school. But we are doing with this model everything that we can right now. If children in the before or after school program don't use their slot, when will their slot be given to a student who wasn't chosen from the lottery? We did talk about that, Christy. We haven't come up with a hard and fast, like if you miss this many days. But we do have some parameters for when we contact parents that, their slot might be in jeopardy and somebody else might need to go in. There could be legitimate reasons why somebody misses 5 days, or something like that. So there is a chance that parents may lose a slot. We're just not putting exact guidelines because we know that every situation is going to be completely unique. For the new social worker role, is this person now a full-time employee? That is, the social worker was posted as a part-time role and the after-school program role was part-time. Is this person a full-time employee, or is the social worker taking on the after-school program as part of that half-time role? It's now going to be proposed as a full-time. So we advertised for a part-time social worker and an after-school program. We're having the same person do both. So working with the after-school program is not going to jeopardize any of the original things that we wanted that social worker to do. So all of those things are still going to be in place that we talked about at the board meeting in the spring. How many children currently qualify for before and after school based on free and reduced lunch, IEP, and 504 plans? We don't know that because this is an application. We have plenty of kids who are on IEPs or 504s and their parents won't want them in the after school program. So we're going to have to look to see how many people apply and then go through the rubric after that um, based on need. Will the first grade class remain in the lunchroom and combined? No, first grade is back into their classrooms, very happily, I should say, and we are back to using the cafeteria for lunch. So we're all pretty excited about that. We may need to keep six. We are really focusing on keeping 6 foot distancing at lunch, if at all possible. Well, it will be possible. We may need to eventually have what we're kind of calling bistro seating outside the cafeteria along the windows for some of our bigger classes, but there won't be a classroom in the cafeteria. All right, let me go down to the chat. Okay, let's see. Thank you for your hard work on this plan. I think you have a phenomenal balance. Will you please consider limited remote instruction snow days to a maximum of 3? Remote instruction does not work for all children and they will fall behind if there are a significant number of remote days. We can definitely take that in consideration. We'll always also have to see what kind of winter we have. Because I know that as soon as we start talking about going late in June, people get concerned about that too. But thank you for that feedback. I greatly appreciate and respect the moderate and balanced approach that you've presented tonight. After a rough year and a half, our family is very much looking forward to this upcoming school year for our children. Thanks. We are too. We really are. And I met with staff earlier, as I said, and I can tell you, I think we all feel like we're in a good place to make this a really great year. And I don't see anything else in Q&A and chat, but I'm sure there's got to be more questions. Would GVS consider contracting out the after-school program? The majority of other districts around us are offering after-school programs and many of them are running. Ours is running. We're just running at the capacity that we can handle. I think that if there's contracting out, it wouldn't be at GVS. So it would be somebody, I don't know, maybe Isabel, you can start a grassroots effort in trying to figure out another way to do a contracted after-school program. But even if we contracted out after school programming with our space and what we need to do with kids after school, I can tell you that my recommendation is that we keep our capacity at 50 this year. Are band and chorus going to happen in person this year? Yes, they are. The CDC has changed its guidance. It was 8 to 10 feet. It is now down to 6 feet and with masking for singing or blowing instruments. So we believe that Mr. Hapes will be able to do a lot more of his usual instruction in the music room. He'll be back in the music room. And as with everybody else, I'm sure he's probably going to try and take advantage of outside time as well as everybody else has. And when I say masking, I mean the CDC is now recommending, and I'm sure you already know this. They're recommending the masking just for singing and for masking the instrument if it's a blowing instrument, so masking the instruments. But again, this is something that we feel like we have enough data where we can safely bring this back and not worry about the increased transmission. Oh, did they change it to 3 feet? The last I looked, CDC had changed it to 6. So I'll revisit that. Thanks for letting me know. Other schools contract out at their location, by the way. Isabel, maybe it would be better if we talked about this, I don't know, maybe at another time. Um, I'm really excited about after school programming and having social worker focus on it this year. A lot of that wouldn't work if it weren't with our kids and some of our staff at GVS because we can have a lot of our providers right there with them. We have contracted out in the past to another agency. I think it was 7 years ago or so. And from what I understood, it wasn't as great as doing it ourselves. That's wonderful. I'm happy to see the music program happening. Would move to masking require an emergency board meeting or just increase rate? Obviously, Grantham is well vaccinated, but rates are climbing quickly. So we would most likely do an emergency board meeting if we have a drastic change to masking. So right now, just to clarify, whenever anybody is inside in the building, if you are moving around, if for any reason you might be closer than 3 feet with somebody else, you're going to be wearing a mask. So there will be lots of time outside, recess, lunch, sitting at your desk where kids aren't masked, but we really want to emphasize that mask to move is what we're starting with. With increased transmission, it's not really clear if we're going to need to change that right away. So yes, I would call a board meeting to go over that if we had a significant masking change. Um, if you are saying some people's names with their questions, please say everyone's names. Okay. Karen Hermanson, did the other second grade teacher get hired? Just curious to know who it is. Yes, the new hires will be going to the board on Tuesday, and we are happy to welcome Liesl Fagan as our second grade teacher who will be going forward for the official stamp of approval for the board on Tuesday. Will kids still use sorry, Kate and Rick Townley. Will kids still use face shields during lunchtime? No, we're not. We're doing away with face shields for this year. Very thought out plan, a Crystal Darling, very thought out plan. Will the bigger classes still be able to unmask inside or will they be too close together, not 3 feet? So basically, we're hoping that when the kids are actually stationary and at their desks, that we can do some furniture juggling. We do have a variety of different types of furniture. So we're hoping that we can make sure that when they're in their classes, that we can keep everybody at 3 feet. Some of our bigger classes, it is going to be tight with our classrooms. And basically, the CDC recommendation is saying 3 feet whenever possible. So we're going to get as close as we can, and we're going to try and keep every class consistent with when they are masked and when they're not masked. So um, we're going to work very hard to make that happen. Okay, checking chat. Answered 20 questions, so we've literally had 20 questions. I don't know if anybody has anything else. The new gym teacher who will be going to the board on Tuesday night is Brett Matthews. And will specials be cohorted again, i.e. gym Monday through Friday 1 week? We're going back for specials to the schedule that we had pretty much at the end of the year. So the kids will have the rotating specials daily as they did more at the end of the year, as opposed to, keeping gym for 2 weeks in a row and then library for 2 weeks in a row. So the schedule will be very similar to what we ended last year with, and that's from Jeff Metzler. Okay. Questions are slowing down. Let's see. Some coming in. Will decisions be reviewed when kids can be vaccinated? Absolutely. We've heard a variety of information about when that would be. We've heard everything from, spring to winter or fall to winter to spring. So we will revisit everything once that next age group is able to be vaccinated, definitely. When will the recording be available? This is from Aaron. When will the recording be available? I missed the beginning. So usually it just takes, I don't know, maybe a half an hour to download, and it'll depend on if Mr. Britton is able to upload it to the computer tonight, but I'm sure it'll be there by the morning. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with me tonight. It is going into a much better year than when we had this very same meeting a year ago. Thanks for all the community support. As always, Grantham is doing really well with COVID and the big picture of everything. So I hope to see some of you or have you join us for the board meeting on Tuesday night. And as always, the board starts out with public input. So if there's anything that want to follow up with the board from this meeting, they are there for you. And I hope everybody really has a chance to enjoy the rest of their summer with some more nice days like we had today. It was great to be out in the sunshine, see the sunshine. Okay. Thanks very much. Have a great night, everybody.